Greetings, everyone. Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of The Monster's Den. It's Thursday night. Thanks for joining us. Today we've got a double feature we're going to talk about. 2022, we had two films from a director named tiwest. Perhaps you've seen some of his films before. He came out as Twice last year with a very cool throwback film to the 70s called X, starring Mia Goth and others. And then he came back shortly thereafter with a prequel called Pearl. And these two were, I guess, kind of the talk of the horror world last year for the most part, right? Everybody was chatting about this. Everybody was asking us, Pete, Monsters Den guys, when are you going to review and talk about these two fantastic, fun films? And we were like, okay, we'll do it. So here we are. A little late, but that's okay. So everybody's been watching them and maybe rewatching them. I saw these like a month ago, and I kind of enjoyed them. But let's start. So what do you think, guys? Should we start with X or start with Pearl?
Oh, X.
Start
with the
X
first.
Start with X.
X, yeah.
All right. So again, directed by tiwest. This is the film right here. This let's see. Let's get all the stars down. Bear with me, everybody, as we go and give you all the factoids first. So X was released March 13th, 2022, so about a year ago. Like I said, it was written and directed by tiwest, starring Mia Goth, Jenna Ortega, Martin Henderson, Brittany Snow, Owen Campbell, Stephen Uri, and Scott Mescudi. Okay, and this is, I don't think anybody would disagree that this, I think, was meant to be a throwback film to things like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and maybe The Hills Have Eyes, and you throw in any number of other low-budget kind of slasher, backwoods horror type of thing. So we'll start with Mr. Brown tonight. Give us your quick thoughts on X.
Well, for starters with X, let's think about, let's set the premise for this film. How many times have we seen, or all of us here, a horror film that takes place usually in some remote area, preferably Texas?
Preferably Texas.
Desert. In this property, there's generally a rundown farmhouse, could be a slaughterhouse or something run down. Inside this house is a rather dysfunctional family, and it can happen in many films, not necessarily a house. It could be like The Hills Have Eyes or Wrong Turn. There's something, mutated, or for a better choice of words, like the X-Files episode Home, just weirdness in these people live in the house. And then meanwhile, there are people driving around in a van, and it's not the Mystery Machine. And they're driving around, and at some point in time, they are going to interact with the dysfunctional miscreant inbreds or wherever they are in this house. And as a result, it's not going to work out too well.
No.
And the interesting about it is that this film X, in a time where you could take all these, I refer to these as the Gunnar Hansen cliches at this point, after 40 years or almost 50 years. And the thing about it is that everybody touches upon these cliches to make this type of a film. And that type of film has actually gotten to that point, like, in my opinion, that style with The Walking Dead, where the zombies became so popular, you saw them in like Geico commercials. They had jumped the shark and became commercial. And if anybody recalls, I think about a year, within the last 2 years, there was a commercial about, once again, an abandoned house, a barn, a bunch of idiotic whatevers. And what are they going to do?
Geico commercial, I think, right?
Was it, let's go hide under this hanging chainsaws on the thing? And the killer comes in, he's kind of like, oh God, you got to be shitting me. It's jumped the shark. But X, it hits all those points. But for some reason, it comes off as refreshing and entertaining. I didn't feel it was cliche. Probably because of tiwest, his ability to make a film. He's once again, he's a student of film. I'll be paying homage to Tobe Hooper. He's paying homage to any number of directors in genre, and he makes some other, and I'll see if anybody else picks up on those later, different homages to horror films. So he's a student of horror, And somehow the film comes out, technically really good. It's filmed well, creepy as hell. I mean, the scariest part in the film is actually, two octogenarians having sex, but that's besides the point. It just comes off well. And I was entertained the first time I watched it because people were telling me about it. And I go, okay, let's see this. And it starts out and going, okay, the house, this. But for some reason, I was intrigued and I was entertained, if anything. I didn't find myself shutting it off. So that's the best way I could describe it to introduce the film from my thing. I like it. I think it's a fresh approach to some very old, possibly stale cliches. And it's entertaining. And Ty West, he's got his hand in the genre market anyhow through television and things like this, well over 30 credits to his name. Yeah. And he's another one, kind of like Jordan Peele. He respects film and he respects the history of film. And so I give it a thumbs up. I enjoy it. And so that's my 2 cents to start it off, and everybody else can dive on in.
You said you didn't turn it off. Do you turn off movies when you don't like them? Or do you stick it out?
Pay attention. Found myself looking on the phone at recipes, or something. I just get kind of sidetracked or,
Right.
This one I just kept watching and I'm going okay. But it had a certain creep level to it that didn't go with the shock horror. It was creepy. And that's why when I if I'm watching a film and I'm not interested in it, I just start, playing Sudoku or whatever, some video game on my phone or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
I think you hit the nail on the head, though. I think he's a real student of film. And the only other movie I had seen of his before this one was House of the Devil. And that is a total throwback film to the kind of, devil worshiping, Satan worshiping films of the late 60s and early 70s. And I thought that was really well done as well.
And it takes place in the 80s, that film.
Yeah. So that was cool. So, Craig, your thoughts on X?
I enjoyed it. I liked it. I didn't love it. I watched this on Stars or Epics where I had DVR'd it, and so I was able to watch this without having to purchase anything. But and there's a part where in the movie where it kind of takes me out of it, and when I get to that, I'll start explaining it or a little, and I'm going to reach over the turnbuckle and tag into Chris because he and I were discussing this about a month ago while driving on our way to Rock Fantasy, something that sort of bugged us about the movie. But I wish they wouldn't have started with the opening that had the 24 hours before. I think if you take that out, because it's right away when you're watching it, something bad's going to happen. And if you take that part out and just start with the strip club like in Texas, and just kind of go from there, because you're already anticipating that it's oh, yeah, and something awful is going to happen at this house. So, I kind of, wish they wouldn't have did that. Pearl's advances come off as kind of weird, especially at given her age and everything, and it makes sense once you've seen Pearl, but initially it comes off as kind of odd, where she's begging her husband Howard, for sex. Again, it's almost like it makes you uncomfortable, as Dan said. It was that was. But I mean, I did like the production design. I liked the way it was filmed. It looked the costumes and the hair and everything. I did like that. I didn't like all the characters. I didn't care for RJ, the director. I thought his girlfriend was really young looking. I mean, really young, like school age young. So the parts where she, decides, hey, I'd like to be in this movie too, it makes it kind of, again, at least me, it was it's a little skeevy and everything. But the part that took me out of it, or at least somewhat, my rudimentary knowledge of porn, of watching this, that it was, knowing that it said knowing that it was 1979, and the club owner specifically says, it goes, I want to tap into that Debbie Does Dallas money, and then they're going off to do this location, and then you see inside of the van, these are all your characters, and it's one guy and two girls, and of course I'm like, I think you need a few more people, to make a porn at that time, and or of any time. And also, I'm all for the diversification of a cast or anything, but having a black guy as the lead, and then him also the guy who was the club owner, expecting that this would be a moneymaker. It's like, again, my rudimentary knowledge, I was like, I don't think people were that forward thinking in 1979 that they would do something like this. Maybe have one of the girls, be black girls, have a black girl. But I don't know. That kind of took me out of some of this, but then I thought, okay, well, maybe it's the director or the club owner is not very smart with this. But then the director is like saying, well, I can make this an art movie and everything. And it's like, well, okay, well, now he's on board with it too. And so that kind of the whole, and it's a major part of the plot. So it's like, you can't, I kind of like couldn't write that off. So it was just kind of stuck on me for a little bit. I mean, Chris and I were discussing this in the car while he's driving, and we said, "Oh, did you watch X?" And it's like, "Yeah, I did." And I said, there was something that kind of, did and what I just said, I explained to Chris, and he was sort of, kind of, we were kind of on the same page, and I was like, okay, all right, good. I wasn't alone in thinking that. So.
Yeah, I definitely have more than a rudimentary knowledge of 70s and 80s porn. And yeah, there are no porno movies that were ever successful that had 3 fucking actors. Number one, it's impossible.
Maybe it was part of the film. Maybe they're supposed to like this. There's filming scenes in, and they're gonna do something. Who knows? But yeah,
no, because when
the director was trying to make it arty, and
I saw X twice, so I noticed the second I saw it in the theater, and when I rewatched it at home, there's a line that director guy says when his girlfriend is like, "Well, I want to be in the movie now," and he's like, "Well, the script is done, and we've already shot half the movie today."
That's right. You're right.
So they were not adding any other cast members, and he was giving her all the reasons why she couldn't be in it. But I'm like, okay, but it doesn't matter. Okay, 4 actors is better than 3, but your plan was 3 actors, number one. And then number 2, in the 70s, there absolutely was a race barrier in porn. Marilyn Chambers broke the race barrier when she had sex with a black male actor in 1973 for Behind the Green Door. It wasn't until like the early 80s when all the other actresses in porn were like, yeah, fuck it. If the guy's hot, I'm gonna fuck him. I don't care if he's black or white. But for that next 10-year period, the female actresses were actually afraid to do scenes with male black actors because they thought they would not get work in the future. So I'm 100% with Craig. Both of those points took me completely out early on.
Yes, because in 1979, you couldn't click on thumbnails and see a bunch of different boobs. You had to get all the boobs in one movie, and 2 pairs of boobs wasn't enough. You'd go, 100%. Already seen those boobs, need new boobs.
Right. How are they going to get a whole fucking movie out of that?
And it's one thing
that's nuts.
And it's
it should have been one scene, right? One scene at the cabin.
I mean, listen, it's a porn, so you need several boy-girl scenes. You need a girl-girl scene. You need a girl solo masturbation scene. You need at least one 3-way scene, and then you tie all the ends at the end, and that's it. Your movie's done. But with 3 actors,
That's funny. That's the Gunnar Hansen theory on porn. I like that.
You're going on the presumption that they're good porn makers, though.
Well, obviously that guy, Wayne is a fucking moron.
I don't think that's ever established.
But back then the movies were movies with sex scenes in them. More. They weren't just a collection of people going at it. It was an actual movie with 4 or 5 scenes in it, and the movies were
storyline.
They had stories and actors and costumes and locations and things like that. They weren't just like in some rich guy's house like they are now. But anyway, that kind of just took me a little bit out of the movie. I mean, I did enjoy it, but then again, there was some goofy parts towards the end where Howard has a heart attack, and the Looney Tunes part ish for me. Pearl shoots a shotgun and flies out the back like it's a Roadrunner cartoon. I mean, it's like, come on, I thought that was kind of stupid, but I didn't not like it. I did enjoy the movie. There was just some elements of it that kind of took me out of it.
I think the horror elements are very well done. Yeah, the Looney Tune stuff, I get that fully, but there are some moments like kind of a Jaws theme homage. The one character you think is going to get away, the one you think that's going to survive based on nope. That comes like that. So there's a couple of things there to kind of bring us to the bow. That's what, yeah, I agree with the whole, yeah, making an epic porn film with 3 people and no midgets or whatever. So
Jamie, what did you think of Mia Goth playing the 2 roles?
Well, what a specific question, Pete. Here's the thing. I'm not sure. I was like, why do we need the same actress playing both roles? Because I hate young people and old people makeup. I hate it. It always takes me out of it. It always looks fake. It was done well once in 1941. I'll bring it up again. Citizen Kane is the only movie where the old, young people look old.
What? Fucking Max von Sydow in The Exorcist?
In The Exorcist,
Oh,
yeah.
he's a fucking young man. He looked like an old man.
Meet Room for
You know
Tomorrow,
what? That's right.
1933.
But you know what?
Makeup is
That's
amazing.
so well done. I always forget that he really wasn't that old.
Or Sean Connery in Diamonds Are Forever. It's
But most of the time it looks fake, like in this movie. And when they're having sex with one another, then they got the old people suits on and he's touching the rubber boobs. I'm like, this is taking me way out of it. I don't know why they just couldn't get older people to play those roles. It makes me think like there's some kind of supernatural thing going on where Pearl and Maxine are linked in some kind of time loop or something like that. I kept waiting for that to happen at the end. And because when I see people, younger people in old people makeup, I think they're going to get young at the end. That's the only reason they're doing this, but that doesn't happen. So why did they do it? I don't know.
My guess is it was predetermined that they were going to do a prequel, perhaps.
Yes, it was, but you can still get an older
There
person.
is some kind of a weird connection between the 2 characters,
Oh,
right?
Yes.
There's a couple things that are very similar.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, Pearl's mom is probably very similar to Maxine's dad. They both want to be stars, they both want to be in the movies. So yes, there is some, at the end, Pearl says to Maxine, you're going to end up just like me. But when they were young, they were the same too. So there is some kind of weird, if there is some supernatural time loop involved in this, I hope they don't explain it. I hope they just keep that mystery dangling there like a piece of fruit. Just keep it over there. Don't ruin it. So am I allowed to talk about other things, or was that my only question?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Let's see. Dan brought up the blueprint of, how they're driving in the van to the area out in the boonies. I always do like in these movies, and they do it in this too, where they always stop for gas at the last second, or they pick up supplies. And I like it because as a viewer, it's like the brim of hell. They're right about, it's always the threshold that they're about to cross. And as a viewer, I always yell, there's still time. You're right there at the line. Turn around and go back. And they pick up their gas and their snacks. And that's the last they normally see of, normal life.
And did everybody just think about like 5 other movies where that happened? I was just thinking about the scene.
Oh, yeah.
Deliverance.
I went to the theater last night to see Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Oh, you saw it?
And two of the girls stopped for gas on the way to the cabin in the woods that they rented. So
is that as bad as the critics are saying, or is it stupid enough to be fun?
No, it's awful. It's awful.
That's what
it's worth a review if everybody else can watch it at some point, but it's pretty bad.
Right.
As a lover of bad movies, it's bad.
Yeah, that's what I kind of figured.
Could it be any worse than Jeepers Creepers 4? Oof.
Oh,
I didn't see.
Born? Oh God. The worst CGI I've ever seen. It looked like it was a video toaster from the 90s.
Yeah, terrible.
Horrible.
Anyway, sorry, Jamie.
That's okay. I do like that you get a little bit of when animals attack in this with the alligator. My favorite scene in the whole movie is when Maxine is in the river or what lake or whatever the hell it is.
The overhead shot.
The overhead bird's eye view, and you
Yeah.
can see exactly how far away she is from the dock, exactly how far away she is from the alligator, and it's nail biting. And then you're screaming, swim, swim. And then when she gets up to the dock, what does she do? She chills for a minute. That's a guy who knows how to build up suspense right there. Yes, there are stupid things in this movie, like the Looney Tunes thing and the old people suits that kind of take me out of it. But there's some great things that tell you that this guy knows what he's doing. For example, this is the one scene I wanted to talk about because when I first saw this, when it was streaming, I didn't really notice it, but I watched it the second time this week. The scene where Maxine is having lemonade with Pearl. All right, it's very creepy. And then, but what they're doing, what tiwest is doing is they go back to where they're making the porno, and the chick and the dude are having lemonade at a table. So two things are going on at the same time, very similar. And Brittany Snow, her character, gets up as they make the porno and whispers into the guy's ear, "Come with me before Daddy gets home." And then they go back to the kitchen where Pearl and Maxine are having lemonade. And it's almost happening subconsciously because they didn't pick it up the first time. But it builds sexual tension with Maxine and Pearl with the cutting back to the porno of the same situation. And when she says, "Hurry up before Daddy gets home," it's almost like that's what Pearl is thinking now. So when they do move into the hallway and Pearl touches Maxine, you're not shocked, but you're not 100% sure why you're not shocked that didn't happen. You're kind of anticipating it, but you don't know why. It's that cutting back and forth that just planted it all in your brain to the point where you're like, okay, I saw that coming. There's a lot of sex in this movie. So I wrote this down, but now I don't want to say it, Craig. The chick doesn't look like she's underage or anything. She looks like she's 22, the church mouse. So when she said, "I want to do the movie," I was like, "Nice, get her in there."
I was pleased that Brittany Snow, took everything off because the only thing I remember her in is the awful Prom Night remake. But
and you know what adds to that little church mouse innocent thing that maybe she shouldn't be doing this? She doesn't get nude, but her underwear says Monday. She has Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It just adds to that. You shouldn't be doing this, honey.
Nope.
I hope it actually was Monday, though.
Yes.
It was the 70s, so it could have been Wednesday
Sunday.
when they shot that scene.
She had fresh.
Yeah. So that's everything I have written down about that movie. I do like it. I liked it. Here it is. I liked it better the second time. And then when I was going to watch Pearl a long time ago, but I was like, we're going to talk about these. I'll hold off and wait. And once I watched Pearl, I liked X a little bit more. We were going to wait until Maxine Part 3 came out and talk about the trilogy, but we'll do that movie separately.
Yeah, Lord only knows when that's going to come out. So,
Yeah.
Well, these two came out within 10 months of one another.
Yeah.
Got these back to back.
I think they're filming.
Maxine didn't shoot yet.
Yeah.
Isn't she? I thought they said they were shooting it. Okay.
I didn't think they were in production yet.
So, Davey, what did you think of the horror elements in this film? You think it was successful?
Yes, fantastically so, and in a very meta fashion, which is why I don't think any of those criticisms are ones that I identified at all, because it is inviting you to watch it as a horror film, almost a film within a film, which it is in places. We literally see the film at the start go from 4:3 to 16:9. We literally see the film change before our very eyes at the very start of the film as the aspect ratio changes. And then it's got an oversaturated color tone, just like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then it's got a completely different saturation when we're seeing the porno scenes being shot. And there's meta jokes after meta jokes. I mean, the van they drive in, Dan mentioned it's not Scooby van, but it is the ploughing services van for the porno guys. The ploughing services. So he's putting in these little jokes along the way to remind you it's only a movie. It's the Mystery Science Theater. It's only a movie. I should really just relax. Don't worry if you know it's the same actress. It doesn't matter. You know, these things are irrelevant when he's actually wanting you to notice the small things from other movies. He's wanting you to notice look at this. It's the Shining. The door just been smashed in. You know, it's exactly like Shelley Duvall. Look at this. This is we mentioned Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but there's another Tobe Hooper movie in here, Eaten Alive. Which is certainly all over it. And there's a major movie that this is cribbing from, which is Mother's Day by Charles Kaufman, which is one of the great hag horror movies of the early 80s, by Lloyd Kaufman's brother, Charles. So it's inviting you to kind of laugh with these tropes as you go along. So the idea of having why would God this actress playing the two parts. And Jamie, I was hoping you'd mention Mia Goth because you've seen her relatively recently in Gore Verbinski's movie that you were given for Secret Satan.
Yes.
Yeah, she's actually incredibly English and incredibly.
What the hell was that movie again?
Yeah.
The Serum.
I can't remember the name of it.
For wellness or something like that.
The Wellness.
Yes. A Cure for Wellness.
That's it.
And she's as English as King Charles. So it's quite bizarre to hear her accent in these movies. So again, it's inviting you to kind of say these over the top accents even take you out of the moment. The black guy being in a porno film at the time takes you out the moment if you're looking at it from that point of view. But again, he's not. He's inviting you to just say, it's just a movie, folks. We're having fun here. And that will certainly come into play in the next one, where it's just a metaverse, really. He's making, I think he does have a quote where he says something like, I'm doing my very own little cinematic universe. And I want to do the slasher sequel thing, but not just do the same movie over and over again. I want to take different horror tropes every time and different types of cinema history every time, because we'll see that in the next one. It isn't always horror that he's going to do this with, and deconstruct it and throw it back together. And sometimes it'll be for comedic effect, sometimes it'll just be for references. And obviously in the next one, he'll start to reference this film, and it'll be fun to spot the Easter eggs from this film moving forward into the next. And then we get ones in this, like the car in the lake is obviously Psycho, that kind of reference. So I mean, it's pretty much just, you can almost just give the audience a scorecard, and who can get the most references wins. It's more that kind of thing I take it to be. So it's a film made by a genre film fan for genre film fans, and I don't think it's intended to be taken even remotely as seriously as to have anything in it that can take you out of it, because I don't think you're ever supposed to be totally in it. I think you're always supposed to be acutely aware that you are in a very fictitious and very over-the-top universe filled with references to other things that you know and love.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But is there a fine line to cross between, like, what you say between, making a reference to Psycho and Eaten Alive and Texas Chainsaw, but still you say, he's totally ripping off these things. And
yes, the fine line,
the original, or
the fine line is whether or not you come away with it going, I enjoyed that. And I think I came away with it going, I really enjoyed that. Yeah, that was fantastic fun. And I'll tell you, it's one of my favorite ending. Like you mentioned, Craig, that one of your criticisms was the flashback, the 24 hours. Yeah. I love that because it builds up the sheriff to have that closing line at the end of the film, which had me in hysterics, that closing line that he gets, and then cut straight to X. That was a genius line at the end. And the next film is going to have a brilliant ending as well. So I think he's someone who acutely sets the beginning and end of his film and fills it in from there. I think he's someone to really watch, tiwest. I think he's a real talent. And between these two films, believe me, if I like this one, I'm going to really be blowing the next one. I'll be in one of these movies myself if I'm not careful. But I wanted to say, though, I must admit, I'm not particularly up on the porn industry in the 1970s, but I do own Herschel Gordon Lewis's lost movies from Vinegar Syndrome, and there is indeed some massive African American appendages in that, and that was indeed the 1970s. So there you go. So from my very limited knowledge, there were certainly a few kicking about.
Yeah, but weren't the H.G. Lewis movies? Weren't those like nudie cuties? They were just like.
Oh no, the lost films of
volleyball
it. They were lost films of H.G.
Okay.
Of Herschel Gordon were. They were hardcore
Okay.
sex masquerading as documentary. He wanted to explore what makes black sex different from white sex, and it's just an excuse for complete and utter debauchery of the highest order. You'd love it.
Well, there's also an Abel Ferrara film that Vinegar Syndrome carries. Was it called Wet Pussycat or something?
9 Lives
Yeah.
of a Wet Pussycat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot
Can
of
I add what took me out of this film though? Before we go to Pete real fast, it's a weird thing when they start singing "Landslide" by Fleetwood Mac.
Loved it.
I think that these people involved making this movie are so young, they don't know that was a deep track in 1979. That was not a hit until the dance came out in 1997 and the live version became a hit. And then everyone went back and started listening to the studio version. So I bet you they don't know that. And they think that was a hit back in 1979.
They would have owned that album, Jamie. That was Fleetwood Mac's album, the self-titled. These people would have
came
made
out in
that album.
75. This is 4 years later, but it was a deep track back then. It wasn't.
Yeah, but if they're say 20 years old and they would have been 16, they would have known that album backwards and forwards.
I'm talking about the filmmakers, tiwest and everyone.
I'd imagine it's a bit.
That was a
I'd
hit
imagine
back
it's a
then?
bit cheaper to license that than Rhiannon or something, probably. So
And that
yeah.
could be too. Yeah, that could be.
Yeah.
Could be. All right. Well, Chris, before we move on to Pearl, kind of what we've been saying is this film is kind of like a head-on collision of like 70s exploitation and horror and early porn and whatnot. So despite your reservations about a couple of things, did you like the film? Or did you dislike it? No.
Saw it in the theater. I wanted to love it, but I didn't like it. And then I watched it again 2 days ago, and I kind of felt the same way. There was a lot of good stuff in there to like, but yeah, the porn stuff pulled me out. And while I love Davy and Dan, the cliches that they pulled from other movies were so fucking blatant. They completely pulled me out of this movie. I mean, it's two old people renting a cabin in the woods to unsuspecting young people, and they kill them. That was the plot of Eaten Alive and Motel Hell. They push the fucking cars of the people they kill and hide them in the lake. Davey mentioned Psycho. They did the same thing in Motel Hell. They feed the fucking people to the alligator, the pet alligator in the pond. Jamie mentioned it. That was right out of Eaten Alive. I mean, too many of these things just pulled me out. I mean, Howard can't fuck his wife Pearl because of his heart, but he has no problem running around fucking killing these young people. His heart's fine there. And as far as slashers go, Pearl and Howard, they're old as fuck. I mean, Pearl can barely fucking walk, but I'm supposed to believe that she went out to the barn and stabbed the fucking guy, Wayne. She got on her hands and knees and waited for him to lean so he could stab her in the eye. And the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, well, maybe it was the husband. But when I watched it the second time, she's like, oh, no, I took care of him. Like, but wait, you could barely fucking move. You're old as dust. How are you, a killer? I mean, and I also, the first time I saw it, man, I just kept thinking, like Jamie mentioned, there's going to be an awesome twist at the end. Like Howard and Pearl, they're blood drinkers or they're blood bathers. And that's what keeps them alive. Then I was like, oh, maybe Howard and Pearl, they're Satanists and they're going to conjure a fucking demon at the end. I'm like, I thought, like Jamie thought, maybe Howard and Pearl maybe Pearl is somehow related to Maxine. And then I'm like, oh, well, maybe Pearl is going to do a body transference thing like in the fucking Child's Play movies. But no, it's none of that. They're just crazy old people.
He squishes their
So
head.
when the movie ended, I'm like, how are all of my fucking ideas, and I'm a schmuck, how are my ideas better than the fucking movie that these guys made? So
You're asking for more references, though, and your complaint is that they're already having too many references.
I just wanted something supernatural instead of these old creepy people who could barely fucking move.
I think you probably summed it up though, Chris, when you said the crucial line I'm expected to believe, whereas I'm coming at it as you're not expected to believe. You're just expected to have a good time.
Right.
And if you didn't, that's fair
it.
enough.
I didn't have a good time.
But I don't think it's a horror film that's supposed to immerse you. I think you're always supposed to have it in your mind that you're watching a horror film that knows horror films.
Chris,
It's a meta film.
Supernatural was the only answer available to how they were killing these kids.
Yes, that's it.
So that's what he needed. That was the only answer left on the table, and they didn't give it to him.
They're old as fuck, but because they're bathing in the blood like Countess Bathory, that's what keeps them alive. Or they're drinking the blood or something, man. Like, no, they're just old, angry people, and they're just old because they're just angry because they're old. And that, Pete, that's why they had Mia Goth play both roles. I saw some interviews with Mia Goth and Tiwest. That's why they did both roles, because it was the message was about aging and getting old and having to deal with it, and your live streams get crushed, and so that's why she plays both roles. I don't know if that was right or wrong, because I didn't know anything about this movie, but when I saw it in the theater, kind of like Jamie, I totally picked it out. I'm like, oh, that's the young broad with the weird look. She's playing both roles. And yeah, I really wanted Jenna Ortega to get naked. She didn't look fucking 12 to me.
Yeah.
I
wanted to see Monday on the floor.
Yeah. I go, the prettiest girl in the movie is gonna get naked, and then they fucking cut away. I was like, the other two girls, that was fine. There was fine to be a black guy shine a couple times, but the pretty girl, no, we couldn't do it.
Yeah, you can only have a video with Chris. We have the disclaimer. She doesn't look like 12 to me at the bottom of it.
No,
I mean,
that's it. Listen, someone had to check that ID.
And before
I was happy that the blonde girl got,
I mean, they were all pretty, but I thought she was the prettiest.
And before I check out,
and now she's Wednesday.
Movie, I always pause it, look at the age first, and then okay, she's hot. I did not feel the need to do that with the church mouse.
Wait, coming from the guy that stared at the old people having sex, realizing it was a bad suit, I couldn't get my eyes away fast enough.
and here's a quick question for the panel.
It looked so fake that I wasn't grossed out.
Well, in the sex scene, right, with Pearl and Howard, I could have sworn, unless I was a little buzzed maybe, when I saw it in the theater and the two of them were kissing and they backed up, I could have sworn that there was like a little bit of slime in between their lips, like in the fucking Alien movies. But then when I saw it the other night, of course, I only saw it on a 60-inch TV. I didn't see it in the theater. I didn't see that. I mean, I also didn't rewind it, but is that there, or did I make that up in my head?
I didn't. No, I did see a lot of saliva though, but yeah.
Right. Okay, so there was something there.
Yeah.
I mean, because in my head it reminded me of the slime from the fucking Alien movies.
Although you do remind me of another reference, which is the split scene is taken from Carrie. It's directly Brian De Palma's use of split screen in this film as well. Yeah.
See, that one I didn't pick up on.
Yeah.
Well, then and the nail in the eye, that's Zombie.
Right.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, I mean, how many? The minute you see somebody slowly looking into a keyhole or something,
The nail on the foot was the worst scene that made me cringe.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I felt that one.
Well, why would you? That was the other thing too. Why would you be walking around a fucking barn
in your bare feet,
in your underwear with no shoes on? You forget the nail. You could step in shit.
He's in the porn industry. Although I will say it's a wonderful use of, I mean, we've all heard of Chekhov's gun, but Chekhov's alligator's a new one on me. I mean, that was brilliant to eventually get the alligator usage. That was I was a bit gutted when we didn't get the comeuppance for the Ghetto earlier on, but then to have, and we'll see that pay off in the next movie as well, won't we, with further alligator action.
Is the Volkswagen bug any significance? Like, in other words, you have all these homages and ripoffs.
Right.
The water. I can't recall any horror films where there's a Volkswagen bug.
I just kept thinking, did they have a bug in Motel Hell that they fucking sunk in? I couldn't remember.
Yeah,
that's what they did. They sunk them in.
That's where they delivered the critter, the fritters, and
Herbie the Love Bug.
Yeah, the worst horror film ever made. Yeah, the most horrendous.
I knew it was
a good moneymaker though, man. It only cost them $1 million.
Oh yeah,
film it.
Made 15 million worldwide.
In New Zealand. Yeah. New
Zealand. Which was lucky for them because they had the lowest COVID rates, so they could actually keep filming. Whereas if it was an American production, they would not have been able to film these two films at all.
Right, and the plan was to do the one movie, but they had to wait 2 weeks in quarantine to
Yep.
get into New Zealand to film the movie, and in that 2 weeks, that's when they wrote the script
Yep.
for Pearl.
Oh.
And then they contacted A24, you know, if they could get the approval. They approved the script, and then they banged out the second movie after the first movie. And both movies were hits. So to me, I'm like, that's great, because then maybe someone else will make a horror movie that I do like for cheap,
Yeah.
and it makes a lot of money.
All right, 45 minutes in, what the hell does Pete think?
Oh, so what do I think? I actually like X. I agree with a lot of what everybody has said. It is derivative. I think it was done on purpose. I don't mind a good homage to classic movies that I like. And I had heard it because Chris saw this first, and he gave me his initial thoughts months ago. And I was like, all right, I got to check this out. And I went into it with an open mind, because a lot of people seem to really dig this film. I enjoyed it. I kind of like the cast. You know, a couple of the characters were kind of idiots, but all the female leads were fun to watch. I think Mia Goth is terrific in both of these films, actually. And there's just enough gore and violence in it, and just enough remnants of, like I said, classic horror films that I really like, that I tried not to take it too seriously and just have fun with it. And I did. So I actually really enjoyed this. I kind of like these kind of horror movies anyway. These, whatever you want to call, you know, Chainsaw Massacre, you know, we mentioned so many of them. I like that style of kind of like backwoods horror type of thing. So this was like right in my wheelhouse. I thought it was really cool. So yeah, so this gets a thumbs up for me. So it looks like we're kind of like split down the middle on this film, I guess, thereabouts. So that's okay.
The thing about Ty West is that he is such a student of film that he wants to pay homage. And the thing, when they filmed the film in New Zealand, they didn't have to build a new farmhouse. They could build it, so they saved a lot of money on production, and that's why when Pearl came out, the production values, in my opinion, are much higher.
Yeah.
And they also brought in Tyler Bates to do the soundtrack. It wasn't licensing music or B-sides. So they raised the bar with that. And that was another reason why they did it. Was you could do it, for half the price or whatever. Sure, why not? We're stuck here. Let's do it.
Yeah, so according to the information, so now we're moving on to Pearl. So this is the prequel. Basically, they spent the same amount of money, but like Dan mentioned, they probably had lots of these sets and things left over. So whatever they reused, they did, and then they took the rest of the money and they sunk it into new things. And again, this is a little bit more of a period piece. So between all the costumes and everything, it really kind of felt like it. So this, again, written and directed by Ty West. Mia Goth comes back again. You've got David Corenswet, Tandy Wright, Matthew Sunderland, Emma Jenkins Pearl, and Alistair Sewell were the rest of the cast here. Just over 100 minutes long. And again, this gives you the whole now backstory of Pearl. So we'll move on to Dan once again for your thoughts on Pearl, the prequel to X.
I like the fact about Pearl. One reason alone, if you recall, when they did the Psycho films, they did Psycho 1, Psycho 2, Psycho 3, which were sequels into each other. They came out with Psycho 4, which I believe was the Showtime direct-to-video.
Underrated classic.
Right. And that goes a background story. It fleshes out, Norman Bates as the character until they had the TV series. You got some background. The character, the killer, you find out what they're all about. And that's what Pearl delivers in this one. You find out. And when I watched X, then I watched Pearl. And then since I'd watched X 2 months ago or where it was, I revisited it. And after watching Pearl, a couple little things start clearing up in your head that you kind of overlooked. Wasn't much, but it gave some background to the character. Pearl, I enjoyed Pearl. And another reason why I enjoyed it, I think it's something similar. Chris and I were talking about REC Genesis. Each of these films could be a single beginning, middle, and end story, self-contained story. And Pearl's a self-contained story. It isn't really it's a prequel, but it's a standalone film. What I liked about it is he really pulls from the soaring opening music with Pearl. I mean, you're off to the Hollywood fantasy factory.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I mean, you're talking, like I said, Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz.
You find out, who is the name of the alligator? It's Theda. Theda is Theda Bara, who was an actress
and she's in Cleopatra, that's in the cinema at the time. Yeah,
Authors on the wall. So it's a to that. Finally, after what, over almost 80 something years, we finally got the Ray Bolger fantasy fuck scene on film. As a scare, you know, I mean, it's he's sitting there and you go, oh my God, that's Ray Bolger. You know, geez, you know,
One for the kids.
one for the kids, you know, and I enjoyed it as a film. I mean, and she's, you know, the mother, the Carrie-like mother, or the stage mother, the father who is like stuck in a wheelchair. I myself did not pick up on the fact at first. When I first started watching the movie, I don't know if I missed something. I thought she was just going into puberty. And there's this big sexual explosion. But then you find out she's got to be around 18 years old or whatever. Maybe she's a little bit younger, but her husband is in World War I. I didn't realize that. And then I realized, okay, she is a grown woman who's just batshit nuts, you know. But she was very much like the people in the 20s and 30s when in the Midwest, they detested movie people because they were like Sodom and Gomorrah in Hollywood. And here's these people working on farms, and you know they worked very hard every day. And you know these people in California are driving around, and, you know, involved with the Fatty Arbuckle murder and all the debauchery and drugs. And we're good Christian people, so they despise it. Anybody that wanted to be a fan of films, okay, they were looked down upon. And there were a lot of women that would do that, you know, dancing in the barn, you know, with the thing. I'm saying, okay, is this a musical and this and that? And then she impales a goose. And you go, okay, now we know what's going on here. And then she goes and feeds the alligator. But everything is, you know, it's this swelling music, a great soundtrack. The acting is very good across the board with all the actors. The porno film they show is actually a real porno film. Yeah. In the Grass, I think it was called, from 1915. It was one of the only surviving porno films. I didn't know this. A friend of mine told me about this.
You didn't see it on release time, no?
What's that?
You didn't see it on release?
No, on release date. No, I know. As opposed, I'm not the ones that the crazy old fucking people. It's like Christopher. I'm thinking offensive because I'm a crazy old fucking person, but I'm not wearing a bodysuit. You know, at least not yet. You know, but anyhow, and then I'm not going to give away. I can't give away the ending, but let me tell you something. The most disturbing thing, as opposed to in the first film, where there is, you know, the old people having sex, which you want to hide under the bed. The most disturbing part of that movie is a 1 minute and 50 seconds of her face as the credits are rolling.
Yeah.
And she's sitting there, and it's basically, it is like, talk about homage to film. This is a Joan Crawford movie. She's on LSD. I mean, the amount of emotion she went through, I was creeped out from that.
But, well, it's The Passion of Joan of Arc.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And this was his homage to old Hollywood. This was his love letter to old Hollywood or the big studio system. So he did well with it. I mean, I was entertained. It wasn't like it was crazy horror. You know, it got a little gory at moments. Running down the road, chasing a woman with an axe. The way that was filmed, I thought that was magnificent.
Yeah, that was a good scene.
You know, he's really a craftsman as far as directing. He knows his camera. He knows his angles. But anyhow, nonetheless, I enjoy this. I don't know if Maxine. I think Pearl is going to be a very hard act to follow as far as technically in the film. But I enjoyed it, and once again, it's a standalone film. And yeah, and Mia Goth, I think is. She's quite, now, first off, she's been dating Shia LaBeouf for the last 10 years. So, you know, it's there's got to be something wrong there. You know,
yeah.
Broke up and they went back together again. And maybe she saw the Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull and says, I can't believe I let this guy get away. You know, so she, no, I think she's an actress to be reckoned with. And she's in a film, Infinity Pool. Anyone's seen that yet?
Yes, Brandon Cronenberg's new film.
I haven't seen it. Some good reviews. It's gotten, you know, once again, she's looked at as being stellar as an actress. But that's it. I enjoyed it. Take it away, boys.
Cool. Greg, do you think that Pearl's descent into kind of serial killer ism had a lot to do with her home life, you think?
Yeah.
I'm liking the new questioning format.
I know. He's putting us on the spot tonight.
Well, no, you know what?
We got Dick Cavett tonight.
I definitely enjoyed Pearl a lot more than X. Just, that it was very bright and colorful. I like the costumes. And yeah, the part with the home life, it reminded me almost like a Cinderella. You have the wicked stepmother. She wants to go out and do things as a normal young person, back then would do. I mean, she at one point she's even punished. She can't have dinner. She's sent to bed without her dinner. And you empathize with her character. She's and the mother to a point too, where she has a part where she says, I'm supposed to be your father's wife, not his mother. And you feel bad, even today with people, when someone's a caregiver to someone who is, an invalid, who can't do things for themselves, and you feel bad for the characters. Yeah, you see evidence right away, as Dan said in the beginning, of Pearl's sociopathy, killing small animals and whatnot, but and the weirdness with the scarecrow. But I found this just a more engaging movie for me to again just sit and enjoy. Where in X, you knew something bad was going to happen, of course, right from the beginning, 24 hours earlier. And this, of course, you as the viewer know that there's going to be some bad things that are going to happen. That she's going to stay married to Howard. She's not going to die, obviously, in this movie or anything like that. But it still kept me with it. The sister-in-law Mitzi was hot. I mean, I had to look her up, and that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
definitely those blue eyes.
Yeah. I like the sister-in-law a lot, but the scenes with the projectionist and everything, and Dan had said the part creeping him out, with the her smile at the end, which I agree, but that seeing that pig sitting on the porch for that long, and it's like you just knew that Mitzi's mom leaves the pig, and it's just sitting there, and you're kind of watching this. It's like, aren't you going to take that inside? Or I mean,
Reminds me of Repulsion a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
So it's like, and then more and more when the projectionist turns up and sees it there, and it's festering, and it's like, oh God. And then at the end you get your happy birthday to me sort of homage, where it's like we're all gathered around the table when Howard comes home from the war. So I was much more engaged with this. And not also the singing and dancing scene, like where it's all in her mind while she's auditioning for her dream to be an entertainer, a dancer, and the big musical number and everything, and of course the viewer, her dreams are going to be crushed, but you still have almost like a little bit of hope that it's, well, maybe they are going to pick her, or something happens, and along the way that she gradually becomes more crazier. But no, I mean, she was destined to be on that farm, the same farm, which looks way nicer. When they go to the pond, you see all the flowers. It's all nice and well kept and everything. And as compared to what you saw in X, where everything was run down with weeds. So it was just almost like the way her character was. She was all nice and kempt and everything, but then by X, she's just withered and beaten down by life, possibly. So I did enjoy this one much more than X, and just it has a really high rating, and with this I enjoyed it, and I kind of like just seeing Mia Goth as one person in this, and not not playing the mother, perhaps, or something like that. Just having her do her own thing as Pearl was very enjoyable.
Cool.
I'm going to admit that the whole time Craig was talking, I was just sitting here being nervous about what question Pete's going to ask me to start off with.
I was
And
like,
if I'm going to have an answer, a good answer or not.
Slow William F. Buckley on firing line or something.
So, Jamie, what do you think of the
One life
concept
line.
of
Man, you guys
bring it
don't
on,
gotta give me a curve
lay it
tonight?
on me?
It's like James Lipton.
If it's not
he's
in
got
my
a big.
notes, I'm not going to have a good answer. But
You have a
lay it
big
on
stack
me.
of
Curse
blue
word,
cards.
Jamie?
You have the big stack of blue cards there, Pete. You know,
I know.
Look, it's
like,
all-
good heaven, what would you like the good Lord to say?
Well, Jamie,
lay
so
it
I
on
guess
me.
my question for you is, did you anticipate that when she didn't get that audition, that someone was going to get an axe to the back? You knew that was going to end well, right?
Of course. I didn't know if it was going to happen on stage or if it was going to happen later. But yeah, I mean, the whole setup was just, not a lot's going on. She's standing in line, but you're on the edge of your seat because you know she can go nuts at any time. That's one of the best things about this movie is when I started watching it. Well, first of all, the opening credits. Dan talked about the sweeping music and the opening credits, almost like those trailers from the 40s. Amazing. You won't believe your eyes. That's how the credits are sweeping by. And I'm like, and then when the credits do stay there, they shake a little bit. Like it's so early in the making movies era that they can't keep it steady. So it's those little things that I really appreciate. Those are the brown M&Ms of making movies. And what I mean by that is Van Halen used to tell people when they would go into a venue, we don't want any brown M&Ms in our dressing room. And the reason they did it is because if they saw brown M&Ms, they knew the people weren't doing their job right. But if they didn't see the brown M&Ms, they knew they were taking care of all the other things too. So when I see those little things done, I'm like, these guys are doing their job. They're making sure the brown M&Ms aren't in the dressing room. They're taking extra care in this shit. So what I liked about it is when it started, I was like, how is this going to be a slasher flick? Where's the body count going to come from? And where's the motive going to come from? And they ease that right into the story. They give you bodies to kill. And another thing they do is they give you her motive. I mean, Friday the 13th, there's no motive for those
killings. She has reason with her parents.
Yes, you understand. You don't understand why she's doing it, but you kind of understand. You get it. So yeah, the killings don't take away from the story. The killings are part of the story in this, which is wonderful. And I like how they strung together aspects of X with, the porno. And when she's auditioning, they have the X on the floor that she has to stand on. And then the guy tells her, we're looking for someone with that X factor, which, it's a nice touch using that term, but it's the wrong, what they mean is the it factor. An X factor is like an aspect of something that might come into play that you don't expect. Like Monday night's game against the Chargers, I'm going to tell you what, the X factor is special teams. That's what kind of X factor, but I roll with it. It factor, X factor, whatever. But the scene that you guys aren't talking about is
the confession.
Blew me
in the kitchen.
away. 7 minutes. The camera stays on her face for 7 minutes, and she does this monologue. She co-wrote this, Mia Goth. Something tells me she had a hand in that because the way she performed it was mesmerizing. It's 7 minutes long, so it's not for everyone. It reminded me of a ghost story when she eats pie for like 5 minutes in this movie, which a lot of people hate. She just eats an apple pie, the whole damn thing, and you watch her do it. I think it's a cool scene. But this scene, at least she's talking. I mean, the swinging of emotions and what it is it just brims with confidence. It's the director saying, I am confident to keep this camera on her and not move it at all. And Mia Goth is confident in the words that was written on the page, and she's confident in her acting to carry it to where you don't need anything else to happen for 7 fucking minutes. And there's so much confidence that I sense everybody involved saying, this is how we're going to do it. This is the way it needs to be done. And if you don't like it, That's on you. Fuck you. This is the only way to do it. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that's the confidence I'm getting off the screen, but it is kind of right. So, yeah, and the smiling at the end. I mean, this chick, Mia Goth, when I was watching this, I liked her going into this movie. She's gonna, Kathy Bates won an Oscar for Misery.
Yep.
Why wasn't she nominated this year for this fucking movie? Misery was a horror movie thriller, and she's got the sledgehammer out and shit. The fact that she was not nominated is a fucking shame. I don't know anything about those other movies, most of them, but it can't be better than what I just saw. The laughing at the end when she starts to tear up while she's doing that crazy laughing at the same time, tears coming from here, and you got the man who laughed down here. I mean, come on, that is fucking talent. Oh yeah, she was bobbed.
Yeah.
Now, Aloe, tell me how you hated that 7 minutes of her confessing.
Davy's got to tell you all the stuff he liked about it first.
Okay.
Sure, which there'll be plenty of. I mean,
Davy, we got to make sure, because I know you catch up on this stuff really good. So in this, just like the first film, there's lots of homages to other classic movies in this.
Yes.
But maybe not of the same ilk as from the first movie. So you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yes, I mean the major ones that have been touched on. Wizard of Oz is all over the theme, the just the general tone. The font at the very beginning is the exact font from the Wizard of Oz. But the major tone of this is the 1950s melodramas of Douglas Sirk. So films like Written on the Wind, and oh crikey, all those ones with Lauren Bacall in the 50s, that had this ridiculous color palette that were really so technicolor your eyes would almost hurt at certain points. And as Jamie rightly, as Jamie mentioned with the brown M&Ms, which I like, I'm going to adopt that. And Dan had alluded to have a reference to Theda Bara in this is such a deep cut that this is almost like tiwest saying, I'm not even referencing Claudette Colbert, Cleopatra. I'm not even referencing Mary Pickford from the silent era. I'm going deeper. I'm going for somebody that barely anybody would remember unless they studied film. And that really is a massively deep cut. But the films of Douglas Sirk are all over it. The melodramatic aspect, they were considered women's pictures in their days, and that's all over this film, where it's all done as melodrama rather than horror. And I think that's to the credit of the film, because as was pointed out there, rightly by Jamie, there's not enough horror in this to make it a slasher. So you need another tone. So he takes on this melodrama and turns it into this psychological thriller of, well, we think it's a descent into madness. What we quickly realize is she's always been fucking nuts. And the mother knew it, and the mother's kind of said, look, I've always been terrified of you. We've got references to X as well, as mentioned, the actual X. What was the porn name in the last film? And remember?
Film they were making?
The Farmer's Daughter.
Oh,
Okay.
Right.
Oh, right.
What is her occupation here? She's the farmer's daughter. Yeah.
Good
So
catch. Yes.
That's a deep.
yeah,
Okay, good.
yeah. It's full of stuff like that. That's why watching them back to back, there's so much fruit. And the Ty West is such an intricate writer, and Mia Goth. They know making them so close together obviously benefited them in ways that it wouldn't have done if it was 2 or 3 years down the line. And I was comparing it in my mind, thinking months and months ago we were asked, you need to review this sequel that's out and it's a great horror movie, and we shit all over it. It was Terrifier 2. And this is the ultimate contrast to that. This is a film which doesn't say, I'm just going to do that again, but go gonzo. It says, I'm going to do something completely different with the same character, and we're going to see it from her mind. And Pete, you did ask about classic films that it was kind of evoking. A more modern film that I think it evokes is, if anyone's seen Terry Gilliam's Tideland from 2005. where the whole film is seen through the eyes of a child. And Jeff Bridges is her father, and he's overdosed and died on heroin. And he's lying in a chair and just decaying. But she's living in a fantasy world and having just thinks it's this, a great adventure. But when we see things from an adult's point of view, it suddenly becomes a real drama. But then every time we cut back to her, the color tone changes and it's a child's adventure movie again. And then we cut back to the real world and it's browns and it's dark, drizzly weather. It's visual storytelling of the highest order. And that's exactly what we get in here. And I think tiwest is just someone to watch. I know that you said the next one is going to be set in 1985 and we're going to follow Maxine. I don't know what that means though, because this was set in 1918, but it's the films of the 40s and 50s that are inspiring it. So just because the next one's set in the 80s doesn't mean it's going to be like Friday the 13th or something. So I've got no idea what kind of tone we're going to get. So it could easily be inspired by the James Bond films for all we know. I mean, he's kind of just cribbing from all over the place in little parts. But there was nothing in here that seemed as egregious. Which
I'm going to say Streets of Fire. It takes the Streets of Fire path.
Yeah, but like Chris's issues where it took too much in the last film, I don't think that's on display here. I think it's more influences, whereas just to let you know I've seen it rather than whole scenes. There's not the psycho shine. It references back to itself again though, because we do see the projectionist, who's only called the projectionist like that. We never discover his name. Because to her, he doesn't have a role. He's not got a name. What does he need a name for? He's only a way to get her dreams achieved, so he doesn't need a name. He goes into the pond the same way that the car did in the first one that we saw. So there's all these little small references that I think really reward it, and I think will probably be the subject of a million bad what do you call them? What culture videos and things, like 10 things you didn't realize were connecting accent, all those kind of videos. I think it'll be the subject of those kind of awful videos for the next few years, especially when Maxine comes out. But I cannot wait to see what the next one is, because this one to me took what was a very promising beginning and just made an even better film. Maybe not a better horror film, because it isn't as graphic, it isn't as gratuitous, but I think it's a better film. And I don't think he was trying to one up the horror. I think he very smartly said, I'm going to do a completely different take. And Jamie is absolutely right. The lead performance of Mia Goth here is stunning, it is breathtaking, it is baroque, it is over the top in all the right ways. It reminds me a lot of the way that David Lynch can pull a performance from someone where it's just the right side of over the top. Just the right side before they go into ham, just the right side. He does that often with like Laura Dern or Naomi Watts. But yeah, I think this is just one of the best performances of the year, and that end sequence is just remarkable. That laughter stays with you. It's Christ. I wouldn't mind seeing her cast as the Joker. Never mind Joaquin Phoenix. To be honest, she was just breathtaking in that sequence. Breathtaking.
Doesn't she mention Pearl in X mentions that Howard had served in 2 wars. So I mean, It's almost like they could do something while he's something that also takes place in the past while he's away to see.
She's been alone for all that period of time,
right?
And it's also something
in the I don't know. She didn't say. Did she say which war? Was it Korea or World War II?
It'll be World War II age-wise.
Yeah,
probably.
So something in the 40s. Like that she was left alone for possibly 4 years or so. And
wait, he comes home in 1918. World War II starts in America, right, doesn't get into World War II till 1941. He'd be too fucking old.
He was a Marine, and he could have been in the Marines in China in 1935.
He looked very young as well.
Yeah, and then again, let's face it, if you went home after being in the war and you see your in-laws sitting there, filled with maggots,
get away.
When you want to say, I want to get
I'd re-enlist.
I'd rather go back to the front.
But my last point before I wrapped up there was going to be a like that they didn't actually bother to say what his reaction was, apart from just, oh Jesus Christ. They didn't hold it for another 5 minutes to explain why Howard is okay with this or how he gets involved. That's just a story for another time. We know it must happen. We know that Howard must be happy to help her just go fucking bananas, and we know that other people die in the interim because the car that goes into the lake is not the same car from the next movie. So we know that this is a story that's happened a few times here. Because she has a line in X, which is something like, "No, it's not these ones either." It's like they keep inviting people in.
As usual, you have other body in X,
and the guy in the basement.
When Wednesday Addams is downstairs, right? There's a naked body, the bird fucking hanging up,
and that looked relatively recent as well. So so there's obviously space if they want to make more movies. Anytime between 1918 and 1979, which looks
a lot of years to cover, right?
Yeah.
This Howard is very understanding.
They had two things real quick before Chris gets on. One, the Theda Bara, that film Cleopatra, historically, is right up there with London After Midnight. It is considered one of the great lost films.
Great lost films, yeah.
Yeah, and they just found like 28 seconds of it. That's it. That's been assorted. It might be number 2 on the list. And Theda Bara's films are generally all gone except 2 films and a couple of shorts. Everything else is gone. But she was a force, and she was a Van. She played like a whorish character in her films. So here it is. She's going to see Theda Bara. The guy shows her pornos. Next thing you know, her sexual awakenings, and she's humping any type thing she could find on the farm. That's it.
I don't remember that part.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, she fucked a scarecrow. That's right.
Yeah, I saw her fuck the scarecrow, but I didn't see her, bang the goats or the dogs or anything in the farm. So
that's her banging the scarecrow, by the way.
The other thing,
if I only had a cock.
This is a stretch. I'm going to tell you something, but I don't know if Ty West is a music fan, but there was a songwriter, a folk singer, or songwriter in L.A. by the name of Jim Sullivan.
Jim Sullivan.
Sure, but not the British. This is an American. And he ended up driving. He was a failed musician in LA. He was going to Nashville. He was considered very good, but he was going to go to Nashville. His white Volkswagen was found on the side of the road a mile from a motel that he checked into. Guitar still in the back. He vanished in 1975. No one knows what it was. So I just wonder if that's like an obscure thing with this white Volkswagen, if he's a music fan. But that was just something I kind of pulled out because you could pay homage to anything, in your film. So it's obvious there's no holds barred with Ty West.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same years as that Fleetwood Mac song, so maybe.
Yeah, who knows? So Chris, one of the things that I thought was kind of funny about this, so nowadays you hear people talk about it all the time. It's pretty common for, a guy and a girl to meet. They hook up. The girl is all giddy about it, and the guy's like, "Yeah, I'll call you." So here in this film, we've got the projectionist and her. They hook up. She starts to show her weirdness a little. He's like, "Yeah, okay, whatever. I'm kind of checking out of here," and she's like, not having much of that. So could you imagine if that sort of thing happened today? We'd have a lot of trouble on our hands, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And,
from these questions,
from having dealt Pete Pardo with some crazy broads in the past, I was like, yeah, dude, this guy totally fucked it up. He should have played this like, he was, he should have played it, given her a big hug and smooch and be like, yeah, I'll call you tonight, I promise. And fucking got out of there.
Send you a telegram.
Yeah, he fucked that up. But yeah, I did like Pearl better than X. Unlike Dan and Davy, which is awesome that they watch real movies and know about classic Hollywood. I only watch trash, so I don't know about any of the fucking references or homages to anything that they were fucking doing. I mean, I liked that it had the Technicolor look, and of course, I noticed the big goofy credits and the flickers and the scratches of the print at the beginning and the end. And I thought it looked and felt very different to X. And, I couldn't pick out any references, so there was nothing to really annoy me. I did think the monologue by Mia Goth was very good. I liked that she had one role. I thought the acting was great. I hate musicals, but I really enjoyed that the big dance audition scene with the explosions and shit going off. I love the fact that it's, you know, more just a little over 100 years ago, but these people are stuck in a pandemic.
Right.
And there's, you know, there's all this shit with wearing masks and don't wear the mask and you're going to get sick. You're not going to get sick. I thought that was really genius. But overall, I still didn't love it. You know, to me, it's 100 minutes, but there's only 4 fucking kills. You know, I think we saw, even though she fucks the scarecrow, you know, there was only a side boob for a second. So it doesn't have the sex and the nudity of the first movie. It doesn't have the violence of the first movie, although when Susie Q, or whatever the fuck her name is, when she gets chopped up and when the projectionist got it, both of those kills were good. But I didn't love it. I can't fucking lie. I see you there with both of those Blu-rays, Pete. I'm saying to myself, well, better you than me, because I'm too fucking old to have, you know, more shit on the shelves that I'm never gonna fucking watch again. So it was better than X. I enjoyed it more than X. There you go. Yeah, but Jamie, you're new at collecting shit, so you got fucking 40 years to catch up with me and Pete and Dan and everybody else.
I know, but I do have over 1,000 movies now.
Wow, oh, that's good. You're getting there.
You're close. Yeah. All right. That's like my appetizer shelf.
Nice. So
it's my double.
It was good. I liked it better, but me personally, I hated the fucking ending. I was like, okay, wait. So Howard walks in and that's it. Roll credits. I'm like, well, we know fucking Howard is complacent and helps her kill. So why not give me that? Unless, like you guys mentioned, because I thought the same thing. Well, the first one was X. Then the next one was Pearl. Okay, we're getting the sequel to X. They could absolutely do a Pearl 2 to fill in the fucking gaps. I'm personally looking forward, even though I didn't love 1 and 2, I am looking forward to Maxine, because again, I saw interviews with Mia Goth and Ty West. It's set in California in 1985. Maxine becomes a big porn star, and obviously at some point she's not happy with her stardom and she starts fucking killing people. But Mia Goth said it is the biggest of the 3 movies. You know, it's not on the farm, it's out in LA, and she was like, she couldn't say too much about it, but she's like, it's going to be big. And I was like, well, it makes sense, because these other 2 were massive hits, so they're probably going to throw a bunch of money at it. And to me, just being in 1985 and being in the porn world, and of course my favorite porn is from the 80s, I'm like, well, that sounds super interesting.
When Maxine will come in contact with her father, the televangelist, you know, assuming that he also became big during this time too. So I'm sure they will collide.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
And they both have Mia Goth's 2 characters both have very Presbyterian parents, which is another connection between her roles.
I mean, I'd like to see Maxine meet up with, you know, John Holmes or Tom Byron, but I don't think that's in the cards. But hey, you never know.
Yeah, she's
Laszlo, do you like the porn movie with Burt Reynolds? What the hell is it called?
Boogie Nights.
Oh, Boogie Nights. Yeah, that was fun.
That's a great movie.
Yeah, that was fun.
Paul Thomas Anderson masterpiece. Yeah,
love it.
You know, one thing about Tom West is he gets into the detail of everything he does. Like he handled when he did House of the Devil, that takes place in the 80s, and he grabbed a lot of that dress, the whole thing. Just a little side note: I lived in Texas during the military years, and it had nothing to do with the film.
The Spanish War.
What's that? Back then, yes. Actually, it was the War of Independence for Mexico. That's for another show. But
remember the album.
Anyhow, see, he's making me lose my thought, and I'll just no. They actually are. They're drinking, nothing to do with the film, but they're drinking Pearl beer, which they're in a can, and that was a Texas beer. They also, if I'm not mistaken, the mayonnaise jar is a particular mayonnaise that's popular in the South. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it's not Hellman's. So these are like little attention to detail that, you know, I mean, why would I know this shit? Because, you know, I was in Texas, but I knew what Pearl beer was. And I wonder if that played off on her name as well. So the 80s should be great, because you are talking 85 when the porn industry this was told to me. I didn't know this. The porn industry was on a roll. This was the era of, you know, Beer Can Peter North and the whole thing that was going through. I mean, just all home video. So it's going to take on this pretty amazing era in pop culture, but it's also a lot of the viewing audience are going to say, oh, I've heard of porn, or I know of VHS. And so they can relate to it more than watching, like when Chris is watching it, like, Theta Barrett, like he's like saying, who the fuck is that?
I had no idea.
No. So, but the people, and I myself will relate, through my friends that have told me all about the porn industry in the 80s.
Yeah.
Is that supposed to be the same alligator? Was that the same alligator?
Kids.
I was wondering that, Craig.
Alligators,
how old
alligators
live
can
long.
live as long as humans, so
Yeah.
it's perfectly
I
possible.
assume.
That's one of the eggs. Remember, she had one of the eggs in the
She
bowl.
does have one of the, but again, that's a good story for another film, isn't it? If they want to revisit it.
So, that might be, who knows?
I would assume that alligators live pretty long if they're in a.
They live as long as humans do, yeah.
They're well fed. Come on.
Yeah, I was going to
Right,
say
but-
that, especially if she's feeding them
longer.
bodies and fucking geese and whatever else.
But since we're doing questions, Pete, you have to answer. How much chuck would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck woods?
Lots of wood.
Oh, crikey, that is a good porno. Right. Pete, what do you think of it?
I really like this as well. Would I kind of agree with Chris. I would have liked a little bit more violence, I think, but the violence that was in it was a nice build to it. So, and to me, this is like a little universe that he's created that I really want to see more of. And I would have no issues with rewatching these again. I really enjoyed both of these, and I want to see more. So I can't wait for Maxine. I want to see more about what happened in between, like we just talked about. And this could be a really nice 4, 5, 6 series run that I think will be pretty exciting to me. And she's just absolutely terrific. I think she's really good. I think I agree with a couple of you have said that she might be the next kind of rising star, not just in doing these type of films, but doing all sorts of other stuff. So not really a horror film, but kind of like proto serial killer type of thing, right? And a great looking film, and I really dig it. And I'm kind of liking his films so far, the ones that I've seen. I know I actually saw, Craig, what was the one that you recommended to me?
The Innkeepers.
The Innkeepers. That's not so good. But
He did a good Western.
Is that the
He did a
one-
good Western in
What's her name
2015.
from Top Gun?
Kelly McGillis?
Yeah, is that the
Yes.
one?
yes, he's
Yeah,
in
that was kind of a shitter. It was boring.
yeah.
No, yeah.
It looked good, but it wasn't great. Yeah. But yeah, these are good. I would recommend both of these to anybody watching. So,
And
I like how Maxine is going to be spelled with 3 X's in the middle.
EXs, yeah, triple X.
Good
Yeah,
idea.
that's nice.
maybe Vin Diesel will show up. Just kidding.
Oh, Christ. Plus, it's the middle of the AIDS epidemic as well, which is quite an interesting point to put the porn industry in.
Yeah, but that really didn't affect porn in '85. I mean,
Yeah.
No, that didn't really affect like the late 80s.
yeah, I mean '85. At the time, everybody was like, "Well, AIDS is the gay disease."
Well, and the televangelist part too. That's when a lot of them were huge. Your Jerry Falwells and Jimmy Swaggarts and such.
that's
So
true.
Oh, yeah, that would be good. It'd be good to bring him into it actually, and maybe bring him down some way. That would be quite interesting.
My father may end up becoming one of those big televangelists, not playing on the local Rob Zombie
Right.
Thousand Corpses TV
I
show.
assume he's going to be a big,
like a Robert.
super preacher like they have in Texas.
Probably.
I agree with Jamie as far as Mia Sarah. I think Mia Sarah, Jesus, Mia Goth. Mia Goth is
Mamma mia.
a nomination, and I think it's kind of a shame. But you know something? Other than Kathy Bates getting it and a Stephen King, who was a respected horror writer, and she was nominated, the Academy has never been happy with horror films. They don't
Especially a low budget movie,
Yeah.
low budget horror. Never.
They don't want to do that. So that's another reason why she was overlooked.
Which kind of sucks because the Academy now is making it a point to nominate lots of low budget independent films.
Right.
Other than horror, though. Horror is like still no.
Yeah.
Well,
Still
you know,
taboo. Yeah.
yeah.
So,
I mean, I
so
don't
they
know
want
what
to
that
nominate superhero films, but not horror films. It's like there's still this snobbery going on. There really
Yeah.
is. And for Misery was a more high end film. I mean, it wasn't a particularly gory film. It was a very tenseful film, but it
It was
wasn't.
also a big
you know.
studio film.
Yeah, and it was directed by Rob Reiner.
Rob Reiner,
yes.
So we're
Come back. We have
yeah.
being on a
So and Kathy Bates was already quite a famous character actress after Fried Green Tomatoes and things. So we're not. I don't think they're going to reward a film like this that's still very over the top and bloody. They're just not there yet. And I don't. Frankly, I don't care. I don't care about these award shows. I don't give a flying fuck about any of them. They're good to get some attention on the films, but frankly, it doesn't make the films any better or worse. So I couldn't give a fig.
But some of the more violent ones, like your Braveheart and Gladiator, I mean, they got awards and such, but certainly not horror.
Under the auspices of being historical fiction and things. Yeah,
right, war movies and things.
You
like
got
that.
Rosemary's Baby, got a supporting actress.
Yeah,
and way back when
Long
Frederick
time
March won Best Actor for Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, as we covered.
way back. Yeah,
1931.
In the end, though, I just like the way Davy and his fellow UK guys say tomatoes. I think that's just
Tomato.
great.
I liked Crikey myself.
Crikey. But the one I don't get, though, is that song, I say tomato, you say tomato. I say potato, you say potato. Nobody says potato. Who the fuck says potato?
I also liked when Davy was like, "Did you get it?" The side of the van said "plowing" or however he pronounced it. So yeah, it's plowing. Like I'm plowing that broad. But I forget how Davy pronounced it.
I'm plowing that broad.
Nothing's as good as Martin Popoff saying boogie.
You have to remember, you're all the one with accents to me. You're all the one with accents to me.
Listen, I wish I spoke like Davy. I would sound so much smarter. Holy shit.
Think of the ass I could have gotten if I had Davy's voice.
Yeah,
holy, Craig.
Thank you.
Hot broads with glasses I could have plowed? Holy shit.
Thank you. You should come over here. We all talk like this. It's rather marvelous. Thank you terribly much. Audio books on demand, folks. In fact, I have sent them to the guys. They did receive a reading recently, but we won't go into why that was.
There you have it, everybody. Our take on X and Pearl. Let us know what you think of both these movies down in the comments below, and stay tuned. In 2 weeks, we'll have a few of us will be back talking about our 10 favorite films starring the great Bela Lugosi. So that's coming up in just
never heard him.
So see you then, and visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together, all the
damn time.
For Davy Gallagher, Chris Allo, Craig Kaminski, Jamie Laszlo, and Dan Brown, I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching us here on the Monsters Den. See you in 2 weeks, but stay tuned tomorrow morning for Friday morning at the Funhouse with Martin Popoff and myself. Till then, have a good one, everybody.
Boogie woogie.
Boogie woogie.